Dennis, welcome back to Tuscaloosa. I hope you're doing well, sir.
Ryan, I'm glad to program your station for you this week. You're welcome.
Well, it's those creative minds that you have that think outside the box, and we use a lot of your content, and we appreciate it. And
That's all right.
So I threw it out there because what we did is the way we made it a complete show is we asked the audience why, if you chose not to go to a game this year, we asked Alabama fans, if you chose not to go to a game, what was one of the reasons why? Because even in Bryant-Denny, you can look over and see empty sections. You can see empty seats. And we asked the question, and we pretty much centered it around quality non-conference games is important to Alabama fans. That's where we ended up with.
Yeah, I've seen that too. I've seen it at Wisconsin. I've seen it everywhere. So it is what it is.
Dennis, how surprised were you when you began to crunch the numbers and begin to look at it that it was the lowest drop in 34 years?
Well, I always look at it because it's been trending down for a while, and it always comes out being, well, attendance is down 1% or 2%. And then I started looking at the average this year, and I kept going back and back and back, and oh my gosh, it's the lowest since 1983, and since an all-time high in 2008, college football attendance is down 10%, and the Bulls are down 23%. And so then it became just, a question of why. And I think, you guys dug down on this week. I think it's a bunch of reasons. You can't put your finger on one and say, well, this is it. It's everything. It's a problem the pros are facing too in different ways. But they're more out in front on this issue. So, it was luckily I got the math right because I did flunk high school algebra. So that was probably the best thing that came out.
Well, Dennis, what has been your reaction? Has anybody reached out to you? Obviously, there's got to be, when you write an article like this on the national level, as you said, stay out in front of it. There's got to be athletic directors that take note and say, how can we stop some of the bleeding?
Yeah, I mean, look, a lot of this I've written in the past. I mean, a few years ago, I talked to Mark Hollis at Michigan State when he was AD there, and they're all facing this problem with students. Mark Hollis looked out at Spartan Stadium during an Iowa game, and it began to drizzle a little bit, and he noticed the student section emptying out, and he couldn't figure it out. And somebody turned to him and said, their cell phones don't work in the rain. And that was it. They went to a dry place where they could either go party or go to a tailgate or sit in a concourse, but they weren't going to keep connected with it raining. You ever get water on your phone? It doesn't work very well. So that's one reason, and a big reason why students are part of this. ADs are at a quandary as to how to retain those legacies, and they're legacies because you go to those students in 10 years when they've established themselves and ask for money. If they don't have those memories from sitting in the stands and watching dear old St. U play football, then that's going to start to dry up. And there's no way to quantify that. Certainly not now, but in 10 years it may be when the giving starts drying up around the country.
How much do you say the correlation is between the SEC numbers being down, as you talked about the lead in the Power Five, the SEC dropped the biggest percentage, went back to maybe the correlation of some bad coaches and some bad programs, obviously a lot of turnover here in the SEC?
Yeah, I mean, we have how many new coaches in the SEC again this year?
Let's see.
So, yes, the SEC had lost the most average attendance of the Power Five, 2,400 a game. When you dig down on it, the two biggest losers were Ole Miss and Arkansas. They each lost 6,000 and change per game on average. Well, there are reasons for that. We know about the upheaval at Ole Miss. We know about what happened at Arkansas. Both places changed coaches. Ole Miss retained their interim. We know what happened there. But there were other places. I mean, Texas A&M is down. I think they face tremendous pressure, no matter who is coaching there, to fill a 102,000-seat stadium every week. That's a big reason Kevin Sumlin got fired with a record that, was pretty darn good, frankly, in his career. So, that's a huge issue.
Dennis, do you feel like this is the biggest issue facing college football?
No, the biggest issues facing college football right now are are really the sexual assault issue and how to deal with it. I had a piece today. Oregon State baseball will start a convicted child molester in a game this weekend.
I saw that. Yeah.
And really can't explain why, frankly. And we know about what's going on at Michigan State and what happened at Penn State and Baylor. That's a big concern about ADs getting their arms around that and limiting liability and just improving conduct, frankly, adhering to federal law, Title IX. And I've been told the debt service. I've been told that even some of these big schools with $200 million budgets are not paying down their debt service. In other words, they're building all this stuff, but they've got tremendous debt going forward. And if the well dries up, which it doesn't look like it is anytime soon, there's going to be a reckoning where you have to pay for that stuff. But they're spending in college sports in general. They're spending like drunken sailors. And as DeLoss Dodd once put it, the old AD of Texas, we kill what we eat, meaning we spend every dollar that comes in.
Well, Dennis, and the one thing that always kind of concerns me is how important football is. And there's some of these folks that are non-football guys, and they get jealous of the amount of tension that football receives. But at the end of the day, they're financing everything else. I mean, that's why you've got a new baseball stadium here in Tuscaloosa. It's strictly because of Alabama football.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, you can't be jealous of it, I guess, if you're the softball coach or the volleyball coach or even the basketball coach. Because, you know, if Alabama gets a new arena in basketball someday, it's going to be built on the back of what Nick Saban accomplished in football, largely. So, yeah, I mean, there is that. But, you know, we also have the point where the problem for a long time is tail wagging the dog. You know, just how much power should football have? That's probably another show, not an attendance issue.
Dennis Dodd, you can find him on Twitter as far as Dennis Dodd, CBSSports.com, and we're talking with him right now as we move forward. Dennis, what's your biggest concern about Alabama as you look into the 2018? Obviously, there's a lot of defensive depth issues, no secondary, all those guys are gone. A lot of coaching changes in Tuscaloosa. For Alabama to repeat, what would be the biggest hurdle and the obstacle that stands in front of the Crimson Tide?
We've had all these issues before. We've had quarterback issues. We've had defensive players leaving issues. We've had turnover in the coaching staff issues. And by the end of the year, it just becomes, you know, that's something they overcame. You know, the turnover issue with the coaching staff is really a symptom of winning and having a good coaching staff, I think. And any coach is going to have to deal with that. I think the number one story on the field in college football to me is how this quarterback situation ends up. Because it's both fascinating and interesting, and you know, at some point you might even want to look away. Well, they're really going to, you know, not Jalen Hurts is going to lose his job and he's going to transfer. I'm not saying he will, but what an outcome that would be after going 25-2 in 2 years, and a guy comes in for a half, wins the national championship, and you're gone. Yes, that's certainly a possibility. So I don't know if that's a concern, because I think they'll be okay there, but I think that's the number one story in college football.
So you believe that, and see, I get kind of criticized because we talk about it quite often, Jalen and Tua, but you believe that's the number one topic in college football as far as off-season topic?
In the off-season, it sure is to me. I want to know that before anything else, because that's what I just mentioned. It's got the soap opera effect to it. You know, that, and I will say this, and I've said it before, the feeling in the press box at halftime against Georgia was the shock would have been if Tua didn't come in. You know, at that point, you're down 13-0. What do you have to lose? And you know, Tua, even though he's a freshman, brings things to the table that Jalen doesn't have. The fascinating thing to me was that it all worked. You had you had leading rusher, passer, pass catcher, and the left tackle were all freshmen. After Alabama lost its left tackle to injury, what would have been the odds? How about that prop bet before the game? That Alabama wins, 4 true freshmen making significant contributions and actually winning the game. That would not have taken any bet.
Yeah,
and they did. They did.
And what if the other part happens and Georgia beats Alabama? And you've got Nick Saban dropping 2 championships in a game. I mean, what the narrative would be here in Tuscaloosa.
Yeah, I mean, there's probably only one team in the country that can even think about that happening, and it's Alabama. I don't know the answer to it.
But I'm just saying, Nick Saban, even as untouchable as he is, and let's say if he would have chose to stick with Jalen Hurts, and I think you said it before, it was almost a choice out of desperation. If he would have stuck with Jalen that second half and they would have got beat, Nick Saban, as untouchable as he is, trust me, for someone who does 20 hours of radio in Tuscaloosa, he would have become touchable. That he would have been torched.
Yep, no doubt about that.